Matthew Day. My parents chose my sister's hen party over visiting me after a car crash, then asked $35,000 for her wedding. Her father's interest slightly more present. She dismissed it as imagination. She was wrong. 4. Aunt Margaret. The reluctant witness, foreshadow, Aunt Margaret, her mother's older sister, was the only relative who treated Taylor as more than an afterthought. But Aunt Margaret had learned long ago that defending Taylor meant weeks of icy silence from her sister. So she watched from a distance, carried fragments of conversations she wished she hadn't heard, and told herself it wasn't her place to interfere. She didn't know everything, but she knew enough to worry. 5. Madison's fiancé. The first red flag, foreshadow for part 5. Madison is engaged to Brad Harrison, a man who comes from money, or so the family believes. He drives the right car, wears the right watch, mentions the right investments. Taylor met him once, at an awkward family dinner. Something about him felt performed, like he was playing a role he'd studied, but never actually lived. She dismissed the thought. It wasn't her business. Soon, it wouldn't be her family. 6. The church and Pastor David, foreshadow. Brief mention. Her parents' church is their social anchor. Pastor David has been there for every family milestone: baptisms, confirmations, Madison's engagement announcement. Her mother's need for his approval borders on obsession. Taylor remembers being 12, her mother hissing before service. Stand up straight, Pastor David is watching. Cliffhanger. Taylor wakes from surgery alone in a dim hospital room. Fractured pelvis, internal bleeding, now controlled. 8 to 12 weeks of recovery ahead. She checks her phone with trembling hands. No missed calls. One text from her mother, sent 7 hours ago. Hope everything is okay. Busy day here. Call when you can. One text from Madison, a reply to Taylor's emergency message. 3 words. Okay, got it. Her sister had read her message about emergency surgery and typed 3 words. What Taylor didn't know yet was that those 3 words were the beginning of a lie that would unravel everything she thought she understood about her family. Part 2. Rising action. Bad timing. Perfect planning. Objective. Reveal the hen party truth and Madison's deliberate lie. Show Taylor's isolated recovery. Present the testing call from her father. Deliver Aunt Margaret's cryptic warning that hints at deeper knowledge. Taylor's current context. 6 weeks post surgery. Taylor can walk with a cane, manage basic tasks, but still faces weeks of physical therapy. She has handled everything alone: insurance, medications, rehabilitation appointments, while her family discusses wedding centerpieces. Key points to develop. 1. The hen party truth and the lie beneath it. Taylor finally reaches her mother by phone. Background noise, music, laughter, the buzz of Miami nightlife. Taylor explains. Emergency surgery, 6 weeks of recovery, still can't walk properly. Her mother's response stops her cold. Oh, honey, that's such awful timing. We're at Madison's hen party. The bridesmaids planned this whole trip as a gift. Isn't that sweet? Anyway, Madison mentioned you had a little fender bender, but she said you were fine. You know how dramatic you can be about these things. Can we catch up next week? Thumbnail. No one in my family came to visit me after my serious car accident. Weeks later, they demanded $35,000 from me for my sister's wedding. I sent exactly $1 with a note that said, "Congratulations." Then I changed the locks. And then the police showed up. Because Taylor hangs up, fender bender. Madison told them it was a fender bender. Madison read her text about emergency surgery and called it a fender bender. 2. Madison's Instagram versus Madison's lie. Taylor checks Madison's social media. Photos from Miami beach brunches, nightclub selfies, spa days. One photo, timestamped the morning after Taylor's surgery, shows Madison laughing with friends. Caption, "Best sister tribe ever." Taylor stares at the word sister. Madison has a sister. A real one. One who was lying in a hospital bed while this photo was taken. One whose emergency Madison had deliberately minimized so the party wouldn't stop. This wasn't carelessness. This was choice. 3. The test call from her father, conspiracy seed #2. 7 weeks into recovery, Taylor's father calls unusual, since her mother handles family communication. His questions are oddly specific. How's that job treating you? Still at the same company? You bought a place a while back, right? What's it worth these days? Taylor answers vaguely, alarms ringing. After she deflects, he chuckles. Just curious. A father likes to know his daughter is doing okay. What Taylor doesn't know, this call wasn't reconnaissance. Her parents already knew about her success, had known for 2 years, since her mother's encounter with Jenna. This call was a test. They wanted to see if Taylor would finally admit what she had. When she didn't, her father hung up and told her mother, "She's still hiding it. She'll never offer. We'll have to ask directly." 4. Aunt Margaret's warning, and what she can't quite say, Aunt Margaret calls to check on Taylor, the only family member who does. Her voice carries the weight of things unsaid. Finally, "Taylor, your mother has been talking about the wedding budget. She mentioned asking you to contribute. I don't know the exact amount, but..." She pauses. "Just remember you don't owe them anything." And Taylor, another pause. "Longer. Things aren't always what they seem with your mother. Be careful." Before Taylor can ask what she means, Aunt Margaret says she has to go. That night, Taylor retrieves the envelope from the back of her wallet. The dollar bill inside, preserved for 14 years. If they're coming for money, she already knows what she'll give them. Cliffhanger. 3 days later, Taylor's phone rings. Both parents on speaker, she recognizes the slight echo from a lifetime of important family discussions. "Sweetheart," her mother begins, voice warmer than it's been in months. "We need to talk about Madison's wedding. The whole family needs to come together for this. And we've been thinking about how you can contribute." Taylor grips the phone. She spent 36 years waiting for them to see her. Now she realizes they've been watching all along. They just never told her what they saw. Part 3. Climax. $35,000 and the truth about one. Objective. Deliver the story's emotional peak, the $35,000 demand with its revealing justification. Taylor's symbolic $1 response, Madison's mask, slipping confrontation, and the escalating attempts to break through Taylor's boundaries. Taylor's current context. 8 weeks post-surgery. Taylor can walk without assistance now, though some days still hurt. Her body is healing. Her clarity has never been sharper. Barred an exposition. The daughter they kept in reserve. Objective. Build deep empathy for Taylor. Establish lifelong favoritism pattern. Plant seeds for conspiracy. How parents learned about her success. Aunt Margaret's conflicted position. Brad's subtle red flags. Foreshadow the $1 symbolism. Taylor's current context. Taylor is 36 years old on a stretcher after a serious car accident, trying to reach her family before emergency surgery. Key points to develop. Key points to develop. 1. The $35,000 demand and what it reveals. Both parents on speakerphone. A united front. They need $35,000 for Madison's wedding. Her mother explains, "The venue we want requires a larger deposit than we anticipated." The caterer raised prices. "We're $35,000 short of the wedding Madison deserves." Her father adds the justification Taylor was expecting. "You're single, no children, no mortgage, eating your income. Madison is building a future. Surely you can help your only sister." Taylor notes what they didn't say. They didn't ask if she could afford it. They told her she could, as if they already knew. "How did you arrive at exactly $35,000? She asks quietly, a brief hesitation. "That's the gap in the budget," her mother says, too quickly. "The point is, family helps family." Taylor files away the evasion. 2. The moment of truth. "What if I say no?" Taylor asks. Silence. Then her mother, warmth evaporating. "Then I suppose we'll finally see what family means to you." Her father, "We've invested in this family our whole lives, Taylor. Everything we've built, everything we've sacrificed. It's time you contributed your share." Invested. The word lands like a verdict. Taylor isn't being asked for help, she's being collected on. She is the investment finally being cashed. 3. The $1 response returning exactly what she received. Taylor doesn't argue, doesn't cry. Doesn't explain about the surgery, the hen party, the word fender bender, or 36 years of invisibility. "I'll send something," she says. She retrieves the envelope from her wallet, removes the dollar bill she's kept for 14 years, the one that was supposed to remind her she could take care of herself. She writes a note. "Congratulations. This is what I received from you when I graduated. I'm returning exactly the love I was given." She mails it with tracking confirmation. Estimated delivery, 3 days before the wedding. 4. Madison's confrontation. The mask slips. 4 days later, Madison calls. Her voice shakes with fury. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Mom has been crying for 2 days. Dad says you've betrayed the family." "I was in the hospital for 6 weeks," Taylor replies calmly. You told them it was a fender bender. Silence. When Madison speaks again, her voice is different, harder, stripped of performance. You always make everything about you. It was my hen party, my celebration. I'm not going to apologize for having one good weekend. You read my message about emergency surgery and lied so your party wouldn't be interrupted. That party was for M.E., my wedding, my moment. You don't get to ruin it by being dramatic. Taylor feels something shift, not hurt, not anger, but clarity, like finally seeing a picture she's been staring at from the wrong angle her whole life. Goodbye, Madison. I hope your wedding is everything you deserve. She hangs up, blocks the number. 5. Escalation when $1 isn't the end. The next week becomes a siege. Her mother calls repeatedly from different numbers. Taylor doesn't answer. Voicemails pile up, alternating between tearful pleas, "We don't understand why you're doing this," and cold fury, "After everything we've done for you." Her father sends texts demanding she stop this nonsense. They show up at her house. Taylor watches through the window and doesn't open the door. They send a cousin to check on her. 1. Opening. The accident and the silence. A rainy night. Taylor's car hydroplanes into oncoming traffic. She regains consciousness in an ambulance, pain searing through her pelvis. Through waves of agony, she calls her mother, no answer. She calls again. Voicemail. She texts Madison. Serious accident, emergency surgery. Please tell Mom and Dad. The message shows delivered. Then read. She's wheeled into the OR, believing help is on the way. Taylor politely declines to discuss family matters. Through it all, Taylor changes her locks, updates her emergency contacts, removes her parents as beneficiaries from her accounts. She doesn't announce these changes. She simply makes them. Cliffhanger. 10 days after the $1 arrives, 2 police officers appear at Taylor's door. "Ma'am, we received a welfare check request. Your family expressed concern about your mental state. They say you've become erratic, isolated, and unresponsive. They're worried you might be a danger to yourself." Taylor opens the door with a calm smile. "Officers, I've been expecting something like this. Please come in. I have quite a bit of documentation to show you, including text messages where my sister told my parents my emergency surgery was just a fender bender, so her party wouldn't be interrupted." The officers exchange a look. "Ma'am, that's not what your family told us happened." Part 4. Falling action. When lies unravel in order. Objective. Dismantle the family's narrative through the failed welfare check, surface Madison's lie officially, show community consequences, deliver multiple satisfaction moments as the family's carefully constructed image cracks. Taylor's current context. Fully recovered physically. Standing in her own home, the house she owns, the life she built, watching the people who tried to weaponize concern realize they've exposed themselves instead. Key points to develop. 1. The welfare check backfires, satisfaction momentation. Taylor walks the officers through her documentation methodically. Hospital records showing emergency surgery and 8 weeks of recovery. Visitor logs showing 0 family visits. The text chain with Madison Taylor's emergency message. "Madison's okay," got it reply, and the timestamps proving Madison saw it hours before the fender bender story reached their parents. The voicemail's one from her mother asking for $35,000, another calling her selfish for declining, a third weeping about what will people think. One officer's expression shifts from professional neutrality to something harder to read. The other closes his notebook. "Ma'am, we're going to mark this welfare check as unfounded. You're clearly not in any distress, and there's no evidence to support your family's concerns." He pauses. "For what it's worth, we see this sometimes families using welfare checks when they're upset about personal matters. It's not what the system is for." He hands her a card. "If they continue contacting you in ways that feel harassing, you can file a report. We'll keep this incident documented." 2. Madison's lie becomes part of the record. During the conversation, one officer focuses on the text chain. "Your sister told your parents the surgery wasn't serious?" Taylor nods. "She read my message about emergency surgery and told them I was being dramatic about a fender bender. That's why no one came." The officer looks at his partner. "And now they're calling us because you returned their behaviour with a dollar bill." The irony doesn't need stating. The last thing she sees before anesthesia is her phone screen. No new messages. The family that dismissed Taylor's trauma as drama just created an official record by trying to make her look unstable. 3. The community cracks open. Satisfaction moment #2. Word spreads, as it does in families that prize appearances. Neighbors noticed the police car at Taylor's house, then learned why. Church friends, people her parents have cultivated for decades start asking questions. Why wasn't Taylor at the hen party? Why didn't anyone visit her after her accident? What's this about $35,000? Her parents try to control the narrative. Taylor's going through something. We're just worried about her. But each explanation requires revealing more. Pastor David, whose approval her mother has courted for 20 years, asks to speak with them privately after Sunday service. He's heard 3 different versions of the story. He'd like to understand what actually happened. For the first time, the spotlight her parents always kept on Madison illuminates something they never wanted seen. 4. The wedding downgrades. Satisfaction moment #3. Without $35,000, the wedding budget collapses. The beachfront resort becomes a country club with a smaller ballroom. The live band becomes a DJ from Madison's fiancé's college days. The Maldives honeymoon becomes a long weekend in Cancun. Madison is furious, blaming Taylor for sabotaging her perfect day. The irony. Taylor did nothing except decline to participate. She didn't sabotage. She simply stopped subsidizing. And their inability to afford the wedding they'd planned without her money revealed something Taylor had long suspected. She was never asked because they needed help. She was asked because she was supposed to say yes. That was her role. That was always supposed to be her role. 5. Aunt Margaret reaches out. Aunt Margaret sends an email, the only channel Taylor hasn't closed. I'm sorry, Taylor. I've watched this family for years, and I should have said something sooner. I should have told you what I knew. Can we talk? Taylor reads it twice before responding. I think it's time you told me everything. Cliffhanger. 2 weeks before the wedding, Taylor receives a handwritten letter from her mother. Not an invitation, Taylor threw that away unopened. This has gone far enough. I don't know what we did to deserve this cruelty. After everything we invested in this family, after everything we sacrificed, this is how you repay us? You've embarrassed us in front of Pastor David. You've humiliated Madison. Is this what you wanted? Taylor reads it twice. One word echoes. Invested. That night she calls Aunt Margaret. I need to know the truth. How long have they known about my job? About my house? About everything I have? The silence stretches 5 seconds. 10. Then Aunt Margaret sighs heavily. Oh, sweetheart, they've known for 2 years. And I think it's finally time I told you exactly what I heard your mother say. Part 5. Resolution. The backup plan they lost. Objective. Deliver the final conspiracy reveal through Aunt Margaret, show concrete long-term consequences for all antagonists, close with Taylor's hard-won peace, and the powerful message about exploitation disguised as family love. Taylor's current context. Several months after the wedding, fully healed, living independently with clear boundaries, chosen relationships, and the clarity that comes from finally seeing the whole picture. Key points to develop. 1. Aunt Margaret's confession, the conspiracy revealed, final twist. Aunt Margaret tells Taylor everything. 2 years ago at a charity gala, Taylor's mother ran into Jenna Taylor's college roommate. Jenna, warm and unsuspecting, gushed about Taylor's success, the promotion, the house she'd paid off, how well she was doing. Taylor's mother smiled, pretended she already knew, and drove home seething. 2. The $1 graduation gift, critical foreshadow. Flashback. Taylor's college graduation, 14 years ago. She graduated with honors first in her family to earn a degree. At the celebration dinner, her sister Madison, then 18, received a brand new car for starting her college journey. Taylor received an envelope. Inside, a single dollar bill. Her father's words, "You're the strong one. You don't need what Madison needs." She called me that night, Aunt Margaret says. She was furious. Taylor's been hiding things from us. She's doing much better than she lets on. I asked why that was a bad thing. And your mother said, Aunt Margaret's voice catches. Because now we know she has resources. We've been wasting time on her when we should have been cultivating her. Cultivating. The word hangs in the air. Aunt Margaret continues. From that day, your mother started talking about you differently. Not as the daughter who didn't need anything, but as the daughter they hadn't been utilizing properly. The $35,000 wasn't a desperate ask, Taylor. It was calculated. They looked at what they thought you had, decided what they could extract without you refusing, and waited for the right moment. Madison's wedding was the moment. Taylor asks the question she already knows the answer to. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure. I heard pieces, comments that didn't add up, but I told myself I was reading too much into it, that no mother could really think of her child that way. She pauses. And I was afraid. Afraid of what your mother would do to me if I spoke up. Afraid of what it would do to you to hear it. Another pause. But after they sent police to your door, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. That crossed a line even I couldn't explain away. 2. The wedding and its visible absence. Satisfaction moment #4. The wedding happens. Taylor doesn't attend. Aunt Margaret reports, guests kept asking about the other daughter. The maid of honour spot went to Madison's college friend, someone half the guests didn't recognise. Whispers circulated. Why isn't her sister here? I heard there was a falling out. Something about an accident, did you hear about that? Madison's perfect day carried an asterisk. Every photograph had an absence. Every toast navigated around the sister who wasn't there. The bride, who had everything, still stood at the altar without her only sibling. That empty space was louder than any speech. 3. Madison's poetic justice, the investment fails. Satisfaction moment #5. 6 months after the wedding, Aunt Margaret shares news. Madison's marriage is struggling. It turns out Brad had debts, he'd hidden significant ones, from a failed business venture he'd never mentioned. The lavish lifestyle Madison expected hasn't materialised. They've had to sell their condo. They're moving back in with her parents. Taylor remembers the dinner where she'd met Brad, the sense that something about him was performed. She'd been right. Madison had married an image, not a person. And the extravagant wedding she'd sacrificed her sister for, the one that cost Taylor's presence, the one that revealed the family's true calculations, bought her less than a year of the life she'd imagined. Now Madison lives under the same roof as the parents whose favouritism created her entitlement. The golden child is home again. The throne is smaller than she remembered. 4. The parents reckoning the backup plan destroyed. Satisfaction moment #6. Taylor's parents face an uncomfortable future. Madison, their investment, has returned home with financial problems and a struggling marriage. Taylor, their backup plan, is gone permanently. They'd always assumed Taylor would be there for retirement, the responsible, steady daughter who would surely help when they needed her. They never said it aloud, because they didn't have to. It was the plan. This dollar is to remind you that you'll always be able to take care of yourself. Everyone laughed warmly, as if this were wisdom rather than dismissal. Taylor smiled, tucked the dollar into a small envelope in the back of her wallet, and said nothing. She kept it for 14 years. She told herself it was a reminder of her strength. It was actually a receipt for her place in the family. Now they're in their 60s with a struggling adult child back in their home, and the daughter they'd calculated as their safety net completely cut off. They didn't lose Taylor to some tragedy. They lost her because they finally showed her the blueprint they'd been working from, and she chose to walk out of a building designed to use her. 5. Taylor's new foundation. Taylor doesn't replace her biological family with substitutes. She builds something different. Relationships grounded in mutual respect rather than obligation. Colleagues who became genuine friends. Neighbours who checked on her after surgery when her family didn't. A therapist who helps her understand the pattern she was raised in. Taught from childhood that love was conditional, that her worth lay in being useful rather than valued. She's unlearning that now. She keeps nothing from her old family, no photos, no mementos. The $1 bill is gone, returned to its source. She doesn't need reminders of what she escaped. She doesn't need reminders of who she was when she was still waiting to be chosen. She was never going to be chosen, she knows that now, and knowing it has set her free. Closing reflection. People ask if I regret cutting off my family. I tell them the truth. I didn't cut them off. I finally stopped auditioning for a role they never intended to give me. For 36 years, I thought I was the forgotten daughter. The one who didn't need anything. The one whose graduation was worth $1 while my sister got a car. I was wrong. I wasn't forgotten. I was filed away, kept at a distance, so I'd be grateful for crumbs. Kept unaware of how much they knew about my success, so I'd stay humble, stay hungry for their approval. Kept in reserve until they needed what I had. They didn't ask me for $35,000 because they were desperate. They asked because they'd been waiting, watching my career, tracking my life through people I trusted, calculating the moment I'd be useful enough to collect. My sister told my parents that my emergency surgery was a fender bender, so her party wouldn't stop. My parents knew about my success for years and pretended they didn't, so I'd stay manageable. When I finally said no, they called the police to make me look crazy. These aren't people who forgot to love me. These are people who loved what I could provide. I don't hate them. Hate would mean they still have power. I feel something quieter now, the peace of finally understanding, and the freedom of no longer waiting. Some families don't lose their children to tragedy. They lose them to blueprints their children were never supposed to see. I saw the blueprint. I walked out of the building. And I've never looked back. 3. Taylor's success and who accidentally revealed it. Conspiracy seed has sown. Present day. Taylor is a senior financial analyst at a consulting firm. She earns a strong salary, lives in a modest home in the suburbs that she paid off 3 years ago through disciplined saving and a lucky refinance. Her family still speaks of her as if she barely gets by. Taylor never corrected them. She wanted to see if they could love her without knowing what she had. But 2 years ago, something changed though. Taylor didn't know it. Her mother ran into Jenna, Taylor's college roommate, at a charity gala. Jenna, warm and oblivious, gushed about Taylor's success. The promotion, the house, how well she was doing. Taylor's mother smiled, pretended she knew, and seethed the entire drive home. She never mentioned the encounter to Taylor. But from that day forward, Taylor noticed subtle shifts her mother's questions slightly more pointed.